This is Josh Jalinski, the financial quarterback. Don't touch that dial. So I don't know if my producer timed this perfectly, but I've been a massive Detroit Lions fan since 1985. Before it was cool.
Wow.
We're with Glover Quinn, financial wizard, former football player, probably current, now assistant Little League coach. We're going to get to his bio, all that stuff, but I'm just so excited that you're on because, you know, I always knew the Lions were going to be good. It just took a long time.
Yeah, it did. And I mean, the Lions, I was a fan, obviously, because as a kid, I'm watching them on Thanksgiving Day. Every Sunday, we're watching the game, then I'm going outside and playing football and trying to be Barry Sanders and all that cool stuff. So I wouldn't say I was a fan, but I did like Barry Sanders. And, he was good on the video game, Tecmo Bowl that I played back in the day. So I definitely knew about the Lions, but I can't say that I was a fan. But when I got in the league, the Lions were always good. They had a bunch of good players because they had a lot of first round draft picks. So they always had good players. They just, discipline-wise, they would always find a way to lose games. Even against us when I was with the Texans and we played the Lions, I mean, they jumped out on us and it should have beat us, but they found a way to lose the game. We had a play where the running back was clearly down. Coach gets pissed. They let him run. So he gets up and runs for a touchdown. The coach gets pissed. Jim Schwartz, the Lions coach, he gets pissed, throws the challenge flag. And at that point with the rules, if it was, if they, I can't remember how it went, but if you threw the challenge flag, touchdowns were automatic reviewed, I think. But if you threw the challenge flag, then they couldn't review it. So the fact that they called it a touchdown and the coach was mad, he threw the challenge flag. So now they couldn't go back and challenge the play. And we ended up getting a touchdown when the running back was clearly down 70 yards ago. And we ended up winning the game in overtime.
So I think there's going to be a lot of financial themes as we talk about the Lions, as we talk about your life. But, my love for the Lions, 85, 86, circling football helmets. So the town I grew up in was in New Jersey. So how does a New Jersey guy like the Lions? My brother liked the Saints. So for some reason, we liked two very bad teams for years. The Saints got better, a while ago. I don't know why he liked the Saints. I got to explain. But me, it was the helmet. I liked the Detroit Lion helmet. I liked the Lion. And then they drafted Barry Sanders. And the school that I grew up in was the Lacey Lions. So I thought it was cool. I'm from Lacey. If I don't remember Keith Elias, who played with the NFL, he was from our town. It was a big NFL town. When were you Lion? From when to when?
From 13 to 18.
So 14, they went 11-5.
Mm-hmm.
And then the 16, 17, the Jim Caldwell era. I don't know. I don't think they ever should have got rid of Jim Caldwell, but I thought he was a good coach.
I thought he was a phenomenal coach. I thought he was what the city needed at the time. His demeanor, the way he treated us as players, I thought he was fantastic. And, when they decided to get rid of Jim Caldwell, I was ready to go too. I didn't want to start over with another coach. I had been there for 5 years. And I knew I was going into my last year because I only wanted to play 10 years, and that was going into my 10th year. So when they fired Jim Caldwell, I wanted to leave too. And so I met with the coach when Matt Patricia got there. I met with him and Bob Quinn, and it was like, I don't even know you guys, so it's nothing against you guys, you know what I'm saying? So don't take this personal. I just don't want to be here. I don't want to start over with the new coach here. And they denied me, so I had to play another year there. But yeah, I was ready to go too.
So what made you pick 10 years and out? Was it health? Was it finances?
Being a football player is not who I am. Is what I do. That's what I do. And I always looked at it as an opportunity to set myself up for the rest of my life. And that's what I wanted to do. So I wanted to get in, play as much as I can, make as much money as I can, and get out. And I wanted to maximize my time. And I thought 10 years was a huge accomplishment to make double digits, especially when the average career, is like 3 years at that time. I don't even know what the numbers are now. And so I just kind of had that as a goal. And I think that was one of the things that kind of helped me, because one of the things that I used to do, I used to ask guys, how long do you want to play? And you would talk to some guys and they would say, they want to play until they can't play anymore, or they want to play, this or that. And you could always tell the guys that wanted to play until they just couldn't play anymore, because their habits reflected that they thought they would play forever. Like they thought they would play 15, 20 years. So the way they live, the way they approach practices, the way they approach games, the way they spent money, all these different things kind of reflected, oh, I'm going to get to do this for as long as I want to. The guys that had like a goal, hey, I want to play like 5 years and I want to do this. And those were the guys that were kind of like special teams guys that was just hanging on year after year. Their goal was like, I just want to get 5. And you could tell it by how they played and how they lived their lives. And so for me, I wanted to get 10, and I was fortunate to get 10 and walk away with no regrets.
This is an exciting interview. If you don't know who Glover Quinn is, he's a former NFL player who's a safety entrepreneur, played college football for the New Mexico Lobos, then was selected by the Houston Texans in the 4th round in the 2009 NFL draft. Quinn stayed in Houston for 4 seasons, where he lives right now, right? From Houston?
Yep. Well, I live there.
Where were you from?
I'm from Mississippi.
How did you pick New Mexico?
That was junior college. Coming out of Mississippi, I went to a small school. So I didn't get overly recruited out of high school. So I ended up going to junior college. And when I finished junior college, New Mexico. So New Mexico being in the Mountain West, and at that time, the Mountain West consisted of schools like TCU, Utah, BYU. It was some major schools in the Mountain West that were surrounded New Mexico. So for New Mexico to compete with those schools, obviously they weren't getting the better players from Texas or from Utah or those states, because they were going to those state schools. So for New Mexico to compete, they had to recruit heavy JUCO. So Kansas and Mississippi has the biggest JUCO programs out there. And so I was a JUCO kid that showed well in the JUCO All-Star game. I dealt with some injuries when I was at JUCO. We had Hurricane Katrina while I was at JUCO, so I only played in 8 games when I was. I only played in 8 games in JUCO, and but I showed enough in my second year to get invited to the All-Star game, and I went to the All-Star game and just had a phenomenal game. And my off the field stuff was great. I graduated in 3 semesters. I was done with all my requirements in 3 semesters. I was a qualifier out of high school, so I didn't go to JUCO because I didn't have the grades. I went to JUCO because I didn't have the opportunity to go D1 as a football player, go to another school. And so New Mexico had graduated or had lost 3 senior corners that past season. And so they were looking for a JUCO guy to come in. And with me having the grades that I had, the ability that I had, I was able to come out there mid-year. And so it made me more valuable as a prospect to them. And so it kind of matched up. And I was just kind of driven. I had already told my parents and that I didn't care where I had to go. If I had opportunity to play Division I football, that I wasn't going to allow myself to not take the opportunity because I was afraid to leave home. Because growing up, I heard a lot of stories from cousins and uncles and people that felt like they had opportunities to go places, but they were scared to leave home and they didn't take them. And so I grew up saying, you know what, I'm not going to be one of those people saying that I could have done this, I could have done that. I just was afraid to leave. So I had told my parents, wherever I got to go to play D1, I was going, and it just so happened to be New Mexico.
So from what age did you say, I want to play D1 college football?
I mean, I can't sit here and say that I was saying that as a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old.
Like high school?
So I would say as you get to going into high school, you start to feel like, okay, I can play a little bit. You know, you're the best at your school, and you're kind of the best in the area, and you're making, all stars and player of the weeks and things like that. So you start to feel like, okay, well, I feel like I'm probably better than JUCO, or I'm probably better than this. So yeah, I want to go Division 1. And, growing up, I didn't see a lot of people from my high school or my neighboring high schools. A lot of people didn't go Division 1. So it wasn't like it was a common thing from my school or my community where everybody's just going D1. We just breed players. It wasn't like that. It was like, okay, I'm gonna get an opportunity to go and play, and hopefully I get to go play at the D1 level. And I was getting recruited by Mississippi State pretty good, but that was the year that Sylvester Croom came in. So Jackie Sherrill was the head coach at Mississippi State for a lot of years, and his staff was recruiting me pretty good. But then Jackie Sherrill stepped down and left. Sylvester Croom came in, and Sylvester Croom's staff did not recruit me. So I ended up not being able to go to Mississippi State. And so instead of settling for a Division 2 school or a smaller NIA type school, I just was like, I just go to JUCO and see where I end up. And so that's what I did.
Now, what was your work ethic like when you were in college?
Unreal. Unreal.
What'd you do? Tell me.
Everything. Everything you could think of. It was, when I was in JUCO preparing for my freshman year, you don't know what to expect. I had an older cousin who was already at the JUCO, so me and him used to work out together. And so I was just doing everything that he was doing. He had already been at JUCO. I was coming out of high school, so if he go to the track and we're running, I'm running whatever you're running, and we're lifting, I'm lifting however you're lifting, whatever the workouts are. That's exactly what I'm doing. And because you don't really know at the time what you have to do, so growing up, I'm doing all of the at home stuff. I'm running through woods, dodging trees, and putting pads on, hitting trees, tackling tree out. There's all types of stuff that kids just do around the house. I was doing all that stuff, and then I got to JUCO, and now I'm there going through the workouts, and I mean, every day it was every day. It was workouts. It was at practice early. I'm out there early every day. I'm late every day. It was unreal, and I was taking 20 hours of school. So I was literally there to play football and get my education. And that's exactly what I did every single day. The summer came back because I broke my arm my first year in JUCO. And so then I missed the rest of the season. So now going into my second year, I'm like, okay, this is it. This is my last year. And so I just worked my butt off the whole off season, worked my butt off. And then we had, I can't remember if it was before the last season or after the last season, but we had just like a scout day or whatever where coaches kind of came out and watched. We kind of worked out in front of those guys, and, I showed well. And then went through the summer. I played well. The season came around, and I was just dedicated to the cause. I mean, everything from my early morning workouts, 3-4 o'clock in the morning. And it was JUCO though, and JUCO was hard. And and I tell kids today when I talk to them, like, going to JUCO isn't a bad thing. It's a lot of people that go to JUCO and end up, making it to the next level. But JUCO is going to help you make the decision if you really want to do this or not. Like, if you really want to go on this journey and play football or play whatever it is you're playing, JUCO is gonna help you make that decision quickly.
Why is that?
It's hard. It's hard. it's hard, but the people there are talented, because a lot of the people that are at JUCO are not there because anything other than grades. A lot of the guys are Division One players, but they didn't have the grades to get into D1, so now they have to go to JUCO. So you're out there and you're competing against real guys, like real guys, and you only got 2 years. You don't have 4 years. Like, you got 2 years. So if you go there,
So everybody's pushing to get noticed. So it's even more. I hear that we have a big baseball. I see you're an assistant coach for Little League. Me too.
well, I was. That was probably a little early in the bio. My kids
What's
are a little older
worse,
now.
assistant coach for Little League or baseball? I feel like Little League baseball or football. What's worse? I think it's more politics in baseball.
It is a lot of politics in baseball. I will say that. It's a lot of politics in baseball. Baseball was fun though. It was something different, and I wanted to introduce my kids to baseball first because I knew the action and the energy that you get from football. And football is an athletic sport. It's a skill sport. Don't get me wrong. It takes skill, and I think sometimes as players, we overlook the skill because there's so much athleticism that goes into it. But in baseball, is a technical sport. You don't have to be super athletic to be a great baseball player. And so for me, I was like, I want to start you guys off in baseball early so you can learn the technique of playing baseball. And if you're athletic and you have the technique and the knowledge, you should be pretty good baseball players. And they are really, really good baseball players. And so I did that, and so they didn't get started playing football till later in life. But I felt like they would know how to play football. They grew up around football. We do football. So
Do they play football now?
yeah, they play now.
Great. Do they play baseball too?
My middle one still plays. My older one, he stopped playing. He just kind of grew out of it. Wanted to do.
I know it's sad, right?
Sad, man, sad. He was really good. He's unreal player. And when they were younger, like the only thing I could think of, honestly, was, the Tiger Woods, the Ken Griffeys, the Serena Williams, and those things, because, a lot of kids from the Black community, they don't get to play baseball or be really good at baseball or golf or tennis or a lot of these sports, because those are technical sports. And to become good at those sports, it requires money, lessons, training, teaching. And a lot of the kids in the Black community, they don't have that. So that's why they fall to football and basketball.
That's an interesting. I never heard that.
Yeah, things that they can just play around the house and get a basketball and just go outside and play every day. But the things that require the technique of playing golf, the technique of tennis, the technique of baseball, it takes a lot of lessons. I spent a lot of money on pitching lessons, teaching them how to pitch, like I was saying, in the Black community, because when you're young and you're just athletic and it's T-ball or it's slow pitch,
you're hitting home runs in T-ball.
Hit home runs because you're strong or you're fast, you can run. And then as kids starts to get older, and like you said, they're throwing curveballs now. They're throwing changeup. They're throwing different pitches.
They're throwing curveballs at like 8 now.
Yeah. And now you as a pitcher, you have to try to throw strikes and you have to throw these pitches. And, if you're just throwing meatballs down the middle, they're smashing them. And so the technique that it takes to continue to play, it gets hard. And then once it gets hard, now they're not as good as they were when they were little. And so then they tend to fall off and go and play other sports that are more athletic sports. So that's why I wanted them to have the technique to be able to play.
But that's an interesting thing, race or socioeconomic background. And we'll get into that with finances. Kind of finishing out your bio, you have how many children?
3.
3, great. I have 7. So that's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And Quin works with numerous charities such as the Ms. Molly Foundation in Ann Arbor, which helps victims of domestic violence. He's also helped victims of the Flint water crisis and also Houston when they were affected by Hurricane Harvey. So we talk a lot about football, a little baseball. Since it's a financial show, we'll go to finance. So you've had this drive with football. You also have this drive with financial discipline. What do you credit that to?
Just the way I was raised, my parents, and then the way God made me.
The way, so let's talk about parents. Were your parents like entrepreneurs or were they just cheap?
No, they were just hardworking people. They wasn't cheap, but we didn't have a lot, but they made it work. They worked hard. My mom was a teacher, and my dad, he worked at a factory and where I was from. And then as I got older, around middle school, high school, I think, the factory basically closed down. They sold outsourced the work to, little cheap places in like Honduras and stuff like that. So they closed down the company, and so now he no longer worked there. So then he was security guard. He was manager at a fast food restaurant. He did floors, and like he did just everything he could to, provide and make it. And my mom was a teacher. And so they just worked really hard. And, we didn't have a lot. I'm the baby of four. I got three older sisters. So I mean, we just grew up with family and fun and, entertaining ourselves. And, it was cool. So I didn't grow up with a lot. So I didn't feel like I needed a lot to make it. The money thing was just, if I got a little bit, I was trying to save it because we didn't have a lot and I just wasn't trying to spend it. But I figured I can make it, I'll be okay. I can just get one hamburger instead of three burgers, or, I can get a small drink as opposed to a large drink. So that just kind of was how I was raised. And, when I got a chance to start making my own money, I kind of felt the same way. It was like, I mean, some people take on the approach of, I've never had this stuff, so now I want it. And I was more of the, I've never had it, so I don't necessarily need it. I've made it this far without it, so I'm okay. Um, doesn't mean you don't want some nicer things and you don't get some nicer things, but I wasn't one of those ones that needed to have a Rolex watch and, this or that. Yeah. Yeah, I wasn't that guy. So
Well, I have a client today. She goes, Josh, you've achieved some degree of success. Buy yourself a Bentley. I'm like, no, I don't. It's this.
no, that's not me. That's not me. I mean, I drive a Escalade that's probably what 2017, 18. It's more like my work vehicle. I drive a Dodge Hellcat, so it's a nice car, but it's not a Lamborghini. And I got a Denali.
To me, I'd be worried one of my kids would scratch it up. Then I'd be all mad at them, and it'd be like,
Yeah, my Hellcat gets scratched up and stuff like that. And I don't put too much stock in the vehicles. I mean, you can get more vehicles. I don't really, one thing I said I was going to start doing when I turned 40, I'm 39 right now. I turned 40 in January, Lord willing. But I said I was going to start like leasing luxury cars when I turn 40, like release something, some BMW X7, have it for a couple years and just use it for meetings or dates or just, times where I need it, and get a different vehicle, some Mercedes S6,
3 years later.
Yeah, and just kind of have fun with it. But outside of that, I don't, I mean, I spend a lot more money on my hobbies or things that were my hobbies that I've kind of turned into businesses. I spend more money on that stuff than other little things.
Yeah, I want to hear about that too. So, according to NBC Sports, you made about $33 million in your NFL career, living on 30% of your income. And I like the journey with your parents. It seems like we have a similar background and even a similar kind of thought as I started making money. You said, hey, I kind of knew what I could live on. Then I lived on that. And then I saved the rest. That's what I did when I started making money on Wall Street in my 20s. So you credit your parents, you also credit your God-given talents. What God-given talents do you have that you kind of made you smart financial? Because you hear the financial train wrecks of former athletes who are now broke, who made, 100 million over their career and they're broke now. So what attributes do you think you had that were God-given that you said, hey?
I would say being smart, being disciplined, knowing who I was, never really seeking outside validation from things, being patient, working for things. Like I think all those things went into it because it's not like I grew up in a great financial literacy type of household. It was just I didn't want to make the mistakes that I had seen others make. And, I can look back at my journey in a lot of different facets of my life and say that was a thing that drove me. And, one of the quotes Coach Caldwell used to tell us a lot when he was our coach, and I don't think it's his quote, but I think he used to just recite it. He used to say, any fool could learn from their own mistakes, but it takes a wise man to learn from the mistakes of others. And so when I look back at my career from, you know, not being afraid to leave home to go to school, or not getting in trouble to where I had to stop playing football, or not making the grades, or not getting somebody pregnant, or any of those things that I heard from people growing up as to why they didn't get to go and live out their dreams. I didn't want to make those same mistakes. I didn't want to be the older guy that's sitting out on the back porch telling stories about what I could have, should have done to the younger kids. I didn't want to be that guy. So I just took all the mistakes that I heard other people talk about they made and said, I don't want to make those mistakes. So that's kind of what I did. So that when it came to money, it's the same thing. You hear all the horror stories from guys, doing this and getting in restaurants and losing all types of money, and getting with these financial advisors and losing all their money, or getting with, investing in casinos, or all these type of things, and just blowing their money. And I was like, I don't want to do that. I really don't want to do that. And so
I always had my father. My father was hardworking. He was similar to your father in that he worked 2 jobs just to pay the bills. But he would always tell me like, "Oh, I wish I did this. Oh, I'm like, why didn't you do it?" And so my father was a brilliant guy and a hardworking guy who just things didn't like work out for him. And, he'd be like a guy who was like top of his class, but then he went to University of Oklahoma, played football, was a tackling dummy in the Billy Sims era. So he made the practice squad, which, and he'd be like, oh, I got hit hard by like his claim to fame was, I got hit hard by Billy Sims or whoever it was. I forget who it was, but some of the great like people you'd hear about like in the 60s, 70s, Oklahoma era. But then he met my mother. They fell in love quick. They got married like the next day, and so he was always like, go to college, finish out your 4 year, that was one of his tips. And then he'd have, he'd always tell me about real estate deals. Somebody came to him with a good idea, but he didn't have the money, So I'd be like, well, why don't you just save it?
Yeah, I mean, my dad was similar. The same type of situation. My dad was a great high school football player. I mean, you talk to some of the people back where I'm from now, he was the best thing that they had ever seen. He went to college at Mississippi Valley State to play football, and he was there. And he was just kind of in his room one night. This is the story that he tells me. He was just kind of in his room one night, and he was kind of contemplating staying and leaving, and he, pulled out some cards and, kind of was just, just kind of in your room talking. And it's like, hey man, if I flip over this jack, I'm going home. And he was like, he pulled the cards out and he flipped it over like 3 times. So it was the middle of the night. He just got up, packed his stuff, and caught a Greyhound and went home and married my mom and had kids. And my whole life growing up, those were the things that I heard from my dad and from everybody else is what he could have been if he would have done this or done that. And so hearing it from so many other people, but also having it in my house, in my face, I was like, I don't want to have to tell my kids what I could have done, what I wish I would have done, or what I should have done. I want to tell my kids, this is what I did. I went as far as I could go. I just couldn't go anymore. And so me and my dad have a great relationship. We've talked about those things. And, that was one of the biggest factors for me going to college. When I went to college and actually, played in my first game, like I told my dad, because I wanted to go farther than my dad did. And I think every kid wants to try to do those things. And so when I did it, we had a conversation. I was like, man, I finally, did that. And he was happy for me. And, when I made it to the NFL, he was happy for me. And what's so funny, it was just kind of like he got to live that dream through me. He, for some reason, he always wanted to go to like Phoenix, Arizona, you know what I'm saying? I don't know. He was infatuated by the cactus and all that stuff. And so it was so funny because the NFL Pro Bowl has been in Hawaii like my whole life. And 2014, I led the league in interceptions and I got selected to the Pro Bowl. And it was so crazy because that was the first year they moved the Pro Bowl from Hawaii and it was in Phoenix, Arizona. And so my dad got to go to Phoenix, Arizona, a place that he always wanted to go to watch his son in the NFL Pro Bowl. So
dude, we have like very
cool.
similar, strange, like my father's with the Lord now. He passed, and but similar. Like I took, I was ranked one of the top advisors in the country, and I took my dad. He always wanted to go to Vegas. I'm like, I really didn't want to. It doesn't. I don't want to waste money. And I said, Dad, here's $200. We're going to play. Then it's over. But he really loves that, and he doesn't even believe in gambling. So it was a funny, like, one time I went to Vegas, and I got to take him to like Cabo, and I got to take him to Europe, and he was living it was similar, but it wasn't like, oh, he put this pressure on me. It seems like we have very similar fathers. Like he was very content to be a family man. He loved his kids. He didn't like complain like, oh, I married your mother and I couldn't do this. It was just he was trying to live through us, but not in a way that you're not supposed to do with your kids. It was just like he just wanted us to be better. And it sounds very, very similar. It's like crazy. And man, it seems like you're a man of deep faith, And my father was believed in God, loved Jesus. It was a great family man. But yeah, my one regret, although I spent a lot of time with Dad, is spend as much time before they go meet the Lord because man, I miss my mother and father so much. The lessons and the stories, like I heard the same stories 5 times now and I can't repeat them. I wish I recorded what he was saying, But I remembered every financial story by heart. He had like a great memory. And he'd be like, he'd drive through the street and be like, Joe Smith of the Rotary told me to buy this lot for 30 grand back then. I'm like, yeah, Dad, what am I going to do with that? So he's like, well, buy real estate, And it's interesting that Caldwell quote, I want to write that down because for me, I didn't have rich family, rich friends growing up. I learned, and even what I do with my money and what you do, and we're going to get into what you do with your money, and what you did to kind of amass a certain fortune. I kind of pick very conservative stuff to this day because I don't want to end up poor. Like, I don't want to be like these stories you hear where somebody put money with this, thing that seems, too good to be true, and that it is, because I'd rather kind of do the vanilla stuff and be okay for life than have some horror story.
And that's exactly, my financial team. I've been blessed to have the same financial team ever since I got into the league. So we've been working together since 2009. I actually went to school with my financial manager.
In New Mexico?
In New Mexico. We're in the same business classes talking about, we actually talked about what we're doing. He wanted to manage finances. I wanted to play sports. He was like, we're going to work together because he wanted to start this company to protect athletes from all of the people and all this stuff. And, he went and finished school and started his company in LA. Now he got one of the largest financial companies. I went and played football, and so I was one of the first clients that he ever had coming out of college. We were together, and so we've been able to invest in a lot of companies, things that we talked about. Because he was always like, "Bro, we should take." He's like, "Bro, we should take like $100,000 and go to Silicon Valley and invest like 10,000 in like the top entrepreneurs around the country, bro. We find the next Google and all like that was kind of how he was." And I was like, "Bro, we could do it." We even been able to invest in tons of companies throughout our time. And, it's been fun. It's been fun to, have somebody on the team that I could trust. But one of the things we used to always say is we've already hit the lottery. Like we don't have to do anything that's gonna risk, everything that we've worked hard for. We've already won. Like let's just hit singles. Let's just hit singles. That's what we always say. Let's just hit singles, man. Just keep hitting singles and we'll be okay. Like we don't have to have 700 home runs. Like, Derek Jeter got over 3,000 hits or, like let's be that guy. Let's just be consistent, take, low risk, solid returns and we'll just be good because we've already won. We've already hit the lottery. So that's kind of how we've done it.
That's great. And you credit the 70-30 save spend strategy for part of your success. What is that strategy? And do you still live by it?
I can't. I don't know if I still live by it. I kind of developed my lifestyle. If they look at the numbers, that was something that was created by my financial team. That's kind of how they felt like, hey man, let's do this right here. And I was the type of person, and I tell people all the time, be smart enough to know what you don't know, and be smart enough to hire people that are smarter than you. And so I went to school for business, so I understand business, but I don't do financial stuff all day, every day. I just don't. And so I hired people and that is what they do. And so, I feel like it's not cool of me to trust the people that I hired. Like, who am I to tell you guys what I should be doing when this is what you do? That'd be like you telling me how to play football. Like, no, this is what I do. So they felt like that was a good plan and it was up to me to execute it. They showed me how it could help me in my future if we could execute that plan. And I'm like, all right, well, sure. If that's what we got to do, let's go and execute it. And so that's what we did. And, we were able to put away a lot of money, and that gave us money to be able to invest in things. We were patient when it came to investing, not, going into things too early or, getting out of my realm of percentage of what I should be investing. And it worked out, I guess it took a lot of luck and a lot of faith, but it worked out. And, now at 39, I've been retired for 6 years now. And I've been fine, and I've been able to start my own company and use my own money to do it. And so I haven't had to borrow any money, haven't had to, rush it because I needed money. I've been able to build it kind of how I want to build it and do something nice with it. And so it's been good. It's been good.
So the 70-30 strategy, it's funny, it's what I did in my 20s. It's hard to do, though, when you're in your 20s, because I had my buddies going like, why are you so cheap? Why are you doing this? I remember when I first started making money, we got married young, and my wife's family was like, why are you living here? Like, we were living in not the best area. I lived in a little row home that I paid 92 grand for. To me, I still love the house, still own the house to this day, have fond memories. Like, that house made me a millionaire because I was able to save. It wasn't like this crushing monthly payment. And I enjoyed, we had good neighbors and it was a regular blue collar, but it wasn't like, the house that my, in-laws wanted me to have or what, so I was like,
Yeah. I was the same way out here. When I got drafted, I got drafted to the Texans. And so the real estate is, it's pretty fair out here. So I bought a house. It was like 3,500 square feet. like 200, 250K, 275, somewhere in that range. And I lived there from 2009 until 2017. Like, I mean, I lived there for 8 years of my career, and that was a part of it. I didn't want to move or jump into something bigger before I saw the trajectory of my career. And so I was like, hey, I mean, I noticed this is not my dream home, but this is my house, and it was good enough if it had to be my forever home. But if the career worked out how I wanted it to work out, I probably would want to have built my own home. And so I was able to do that. But I also wanted to wait until towards the end of my career so that I could have time to save money and stockpile money and do those things and see, okay, this is how the career went. This is how much money you've made. This is the type of house that you can afford. And so that's what I did. So I bought some land in 2014, but I didn't start building on it until 2016. That was after I had signed my second contract, had done played couple seasons in Detroit. So it was like, okay. So I started building in 16. We didn't move into 17, and then 18 was my last year.
So the 30-70, you don't do that anymore. You do private equity. You started in 2013 to get into private equity. What types of companies did you get into that you liked? Name your best success story and your worst.
Well, I mean, we got into, so we started a group, and we really wanted to kind of utilize it not as just money, but we also wasn't working in the place as well, but we were professional athletes. So if we got into like products now, yeah, we don't have a marketing deal, but we're invested in the company. So if we promote the company and the company does well, then obviously we should in turn do well as well. And so that's kind of what we stuck to. We stuck to a lot of products like that. So we've invested in, health bars. Health Warrior was a company that probably one of the first companies that we got into. And
what was it called?
Health Warrior. It sold a few years later. I can't remember exactly when, but Health Warrior was a good company. I mean, we were able to get into DraftKings. We got into FanDuel. When they were going through all of their stuff.
What round? What round on FanDuel or DraftKings?
We got into FanDuel and DraftKings kind of at the end. They were already evaluated kind of high. So it was more just like supposed to be like a quick flip. Like, hey man, this is not going to be like a, big 10X, 11X type situation. But hey man, if you can take 750K and turn it into 1.5 in a few months, like we could do that. And so, yeah, that's kind of how that one was. It didn't go as smooth as that. Because they started having all the trouble with the legalized gambling and not gambling and the lawsuits and all
Did you
this and
keep the
that.
stock or did you get rid of it?
I can't remember.
Do you have a philosophy like sell half, let the other half ride, or anything that?
I didn't really have a philosophy. It was more so the team, the advisors. What do you guys think? You guys deal with this stuff every day. Like I said, there were companies, every time we got ready to invest in a company, they would send out the deck to everybody, and then we would get on the call and have a meeting and, give our opinion on it. And if we wasn't all in, then we didn't do it. And when we were all in, we were like, all right, let's do it. And once I said that, then I kind of turned it over to them. Like, far as what I need to put in, you guys managing the money, you know exactly how much money I have. You know exactly how much money that I should put into this company. I probably, you know what I'm saying? It wasn't like I'm telling them,
You
hey, man,
trust
I
your
want to
team.
put.
No, and I think that's a good, I mean, if you can't trust your team, you should get a new one.
Right. And so, and that's kind of how it was. Like I said, I play football every day.
I just didn't know because your business background, if you got like a little over their shoulder, you're peeking. What are you doing, guys?
Nah,
You're not like that.
I never did. I never did. And even to this day, I have people all the time that hit me up, and especially a couple months ago when they're talking about the crypto stuff, and I'm just like, guys, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I do not study that stuff all the time. I just don't. Do I understand it? Yes, I can have conversations about it, but I don't study it enough. I have a team, and this is what they do. So if they feel like crypto is the way that I need to go, they're going to say, hey, man, this crypto stuff is real. It's this. We need to jump on it. And I'm going to say, okay, let me know. Like, you guys know exactly how much money I got. So whatever threshold you feel like I need to go in there at, let's do it. So it was a full trust in that. If they felt like, hey, man, I think you ought to put $300K in this one, I wasn't going to be like, nah, bro, I want to put 500. Or I wasn't going to be like, nah, I kind of want to just go 100. Nope. You guys see the financials. You know exactly what I got. You know exactly what we got going on. If you feel like 300 falls into the percentages of what we want to do and it doesn't affect my everyday life, let's do it. If it work out, it work out. If it don't, I'm not gonna be like, oh, you guys stole my money or whatever. Like, hey man, we're a team. We're gonna go in there together, and you're gonna win together. We're gonna lose together. And so that was really my approach. So I was never hovering over, telling them how to do their job. Nope. That's why I hired you guys, so that I can focus on football and my family and other things in life, and you guys can focus on that. But I wanted to have the knowledge so that we could have conversations, so that when we did talk, I knew what we were talking about. And I understood all of the investment decks, and I understood the money, and I understood how the investments worked, and I understood all the series, and I understood it all. I just don't do it every day. So I'm not going to say that I'm better at it than you.
So if your team's guiding the ship, what are you doing now for income?
Yeah, they still do the investment side of things. And I still don't get into it, even though I have more time now. I started my own company. I started, as a hobby, I was doing like photography and stuff with my kids. And one thing led to the next, one thing led to the next. And I really enjoyed like framing. So I do like custom framing right now. And it's like super fun. So I frame like jerseys, sports memorabilia, art.
Is this like a national business? Framing is, you can't go get people good stuff framed anymore. I wanted my old Barry Sanders jersey framed, but my kids just destroy all my old jerseys.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's high level stuff. And that's, like I said, I feel like I've been able to build it that way because of how I spent my time in the NFL. Because I haven't had to do it for income. Although I get income from it, I haven't had to do it because I need a check. Because when people need money, they may do things a little different way because they need the money. They may rush some things because they need the cash. When you don't need the money, you can kind of afford to say, you know what? I don't want to do that. That's not the route that I want to go. I want to do it to where I can do it right. And so that's kind of how it's been for me. I wanted to get to a level to where I work by myself, so I can't push out 1,000 projects a year. You know what I'm saying? So I can't do the quantity. I have to focus on the quality.
So you are individually framing these?
I'm individually, yeah.
Well,
So
yeah, I mean, it's beautiful. Your work is nice. Yeah.
I built a shop in my house. So I have my wood shop with a saw. I was able to buy my own saw. So, the same saws that they cut with in the major companies, I have it at my house. $20,000 saw is at my house.
And what does that cost if I want a jersey framed?
It's custom. So custom,
you got to pay for it.
It depends. Okay. It could be as expensive as you want it to be.
What's your website? If I want to get a custom frame, where do I go?
You can go to my website.
What's your website?
GQFrames.com.
That's cool.
You can follow me on Instagram and see some stuff. GQ_frames. Yeah. And, it just all depends. Like I said, I tell people all the time, when you deal with custom, I take it as when you get something custom framed, you care about it. You want it to look nice. You want it to be nice. So let's do that. If you don't want it to be nice, you don't want it to look nice, then there's plenty of people out there that'll do it for cheap. There's boxes that you can go to Hobby Lobby and buy and just stuff it in there.
Yeah, then it looks all wrinkled. It doesn't look, it's not.
If you want it to look nice, then let's do it nice. I'm not going to charge you $2,000. Not going to charge you $1,000. But they're going to start roughly, around 500 and probably work up from there.
It's funny. We're talking about frames. I was talking about frames yesterday with my wife, and she painted some beautiful rose for her parents, and they paid all this money to have it framed.
Oh, framing is a big deal.
Probably 20 years ago, they paid like a couple $100 to have it framed. So yeah, that's fair. What is Health Warrior? Is that the protein?
It was like a chia bar. It was like a chia. It was like a snack bar, but it was made and based off of like chia seeds and organic type stuff.
Did you? So I'm reading kind of your journey. It says you put 10 to 20% of your savings in private equity companies. Is that still the case?
I haven't put more money into private equities in a while because we put I'm in probably
100 deals.
I wouldn't say 100, but I'm
30.
I'm in a lot of them, and so the fact that I did retire, and obviously you're not making $5-6 million every year. It was more so like, all right, we're good right now. Like let's let some of these materialize and recoup and recover everything, and then we'll go back for round 2. So
no, I think that's wise. I mean, my opinion with private equity is only certain people get rich, and it's not usually us. And I'm really conservative. So I go for public. I mean, I want to be in companies I know. I can watch their statements. I get, because we get sold as financial advisors, right? And I have a couple deals here and they're private, but it seems like more of them don't work out than work out. And for every, I'd say 10 deals, 9 don't work out. So I'd rather put my money in public companies. I'd rather have it in Costco or Walmart or companies that I see, trust. It just, maybe it's from our background. We have kind of a similar background. I just feel like I'm never on the winning side of that private equity deal. There's an occasional.
Every now and then. And we've done that. We have a portion that is the private, the public and the conservative, and it's just it's the long game, and we're just gonna be fine making what we make, and we take a little portion and we invest in like we wanted to do some of the top entrepreneurs, and we follow. Our strategy has been follow the good money. No, we can't go into certain companies at the same rate or the same money as they put in, but some of these major companies can do way more due diligence than we can. So if I respect the company, if American Express can feel enough about that company to put their money in it, then I got to feel like this should be solid. If Google and, some of these top investment people and companies, if they can feel good enough about the company to put their money in, let's throw a little bit in there, because some of these major companies, they're not going to let it fail. They're going to figure out a way because they got their own money in it.
I don't always agree with that, just because I always feel like those guys in Silicon Valley, they structure the deals so they win. I look at it as like, if you got $50 million, you got clients with a nice, this is just my own philosophy, and you can get $50 million, you make 10% a year, let's say. You're making $5 million a year just on your earnings. Like, you don't need to hit a lot of home runs. Now, If there's a company that comes along, I got a buddy of mine, he said, oh, you got to do this deal. I put some money into his deal. It was a cool idea. They were buying all these old Macy's and they were converting them to Amazon warehouses. So it made sense to me. So I put money in it. But then I always analyze, like, do I make more of my private deals or my public? And I always usually the public wins.
Public wins.
It's just a funny, we should, talk, we could do another show and kind of the win rate. I have a buddy, Barry Dyke, who wrote the book Pirates of Manhattan. And he always says, private equity always wins. The guys at the top. And you're round one. Yeah, the round one wins. Round two, round three, you can sometimes win. I mean, you might get a SpaceX or a Tesla or like you said, DraftKings, but when you're going in the third round, it's a lot riskier and you don't see that 10x. And those firms now in California are so big, they never give you preferential treatment unless you're a partner. I mean, we got some great deals a public companies. I mean, you always have. I always think of Rolls Royce, which we own for our clients. We bought it. I don't know. We bought it $3. Now it's 10, 11. I like those deals. When you see a company that has it's very clear what that company's doing. As we kind of round up the interview, talk about the larger issues player have post-career. Everybody wants to know ESPN, the number one issue they do, I don't know if they still do it, but for a number of years, the best issue ESPN magazine did was the money issue, players and money, because people like watching a train wreck. You always think about Terrell Owens and Chad Ochocinco. I don't know if they're doing poor now, but they say, oh, they lost all this money. And people like watching a train wreck. And I know the NFLPA. I know a guy who lives in the same town as me. He works for NFLPA, and he goes around talking to players post-career because a lot struggle with depression and fulfillment. And you don't seem to have had that because you had that business drive and savvy. But talk about that.
I mean, I think it's exactly what you said. I think a lot of guys struggle with, being away from the game, and the game is something that, they've associated with for so long. And, when you can play it at the highest level, you have so many people around you doing things for you. You have access to so many different things, and you have, endorsements and all these different things. And, when you leave the game, that stuff goes away. I mean, I had a Nike deal for 10 years that I played, and when I retired, it went away, done. And, and I've thought of things that I felt some of these companies could do to, help. And I know that's not what we're talking about, but I felt like Nike, I was with you guys for 10 years. Y'all dropped me a bad habit when I retired. We couldn't do a 5-year ramp down just because you made it to the 10-year mark. Is that not something you could do as a reward? I represented your company for 10 years while I was playing. I still live. I still walk around. People still know me. Can I not still have access to Nikes?
They don't even give you Nikes anymore?
No, but I wasn't a superstar. So I can't speak for people that were superstars.
You were a superstar in my book.
Right. In Nike's book, Peyton Manning or, those guys are, they may still get some stuff, but I don't, so, and there's more people out there like me than like them. And so when you leave the game, a lot of those things kind of leave you. And now you really have to sit with yourself because you don't have football taking up all your day. You don't have thousands of people cheering for you, and you don't have all these different things. And so now you really got to sit with yourself and figure out who you are. And a lot of guys start dealing with that depression because the game is gone. They don't know what they want to do with their life. And so they start to struggle. They tend to struggle. And now they end up taking, jobs or doing certain things. And it is not a good thing. And a lot of guys, I feel like they struggle because the game left them before they left the game. And, I feel like they deal with that part as well. And when I say the game left them, that means they either got injured. Maybe they wanted to play 10 years and they got injured in year 6 and they wasn't ready to leave the game. So they don't want to give it up right now. They want to keep playing. They want to keep playing, but they can't. And they having to deal with that rejection and that failure in their mind because now I can't play anymore. And so it takes them a while to let go and to move on to something else in life. But a lot of these guys have committed their whole life to football. And so they don't even really know what they like to do, what they want to do. And it's hard. It's hard to take a guy that's been playing in the NFL or playing a professional sport for so long to now he has to go and work for somebody. And now you're getting a check, but it's not a $400,000 check that you're getting every 2 weeks. So it's hard for those guys to want to do those things. And so that's why I think you see a lot of the guys try to go back to TV. They go back to coaching so they can kind of stay around the game. And like I said, I was just one of those guys was like, I put a lot of time into football when I was playing. And, when I was done playing, I wanted to do something different. I didn't want to take a coaching job. I didn't turn down coaching jobs. I didn't want to do that. I was like, man, I spent a lot of time at football when I was playing. Now that I'm no longer playing, if I'm a coach, that means I'm spending more time. I don't want to do that. I want to do something else with my life. And so I've turned down coaching jobs. Yeah, you see the little league coach and little football here. I coach my
But
kids and
that's
stuff
fun.
around
Yeah,
the
some
air.
kids.
Yeah, but I'm not taking an NFL job. I don't want that. I'm not taking I just don't want that. I would rather do what I'm doing now, try to create something that I can build, but it also gives me the flexibility to still be present with my kids and be able to experience them growing up and go to their games and be there for them, but also gives me an opportunity to create something from scratch and take pride in it and try to see what I can build. But I'm not trying to build something that's costing me millions of dollars. It's just like, you know what? Just start small, get you some machinery and see what you can do. And as it grows, you just continue to grow a little bit. And like I say, am I going to ever become a millionaire doing frames? No, but I already won the lottery. This is just something that I do to have fun. It gives me purpose. When I retired for 3 years, you get the question, what do you do now? What do you do now? What do you do now? And like it used to bug me after like the second or third year to say like nothing. When I first retired, it was cool because it's like, hey, you earned like a year or
A
two to
couple
say
years
it.
to enjoy
Yeah,
it.
you know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? But to be 36 years old or 34 and be like, I don't really do nothing. When it's like, bro, you still got a lot of young life left to do something. Go and do something. No, you don't have to work. And I was just like, I don't want to go to work when I have to go to work. I don't want to wait till I'm 55 and now they're like, hey, bro, it's kind of dwindling down. You might need to go find a job. I don't want to go get a job at that point. Let me get a good job. Let me get something going while I'm 30 something so that by the time I'm 50 something, hey man, I should still be good. I'm like, I started doing my framing stuff at like 33, 34. So I was like, by 65, I can be done retired from my second career. But I could frame forever and I can continue to grow it and turn into, I may not be doing the actual framing. I may just be running the company and overseeing it and growing it to something larger. So this gives me opportunity. And so I enjoy it. But a lot of guys, they don't have that. And so they fall into that depression and they fall into those sunken places and it's hard for them to get out and they try to use their money and they spend their money and they get involved with things and they try to hit another home run and they invest in, some of these ideals that people come to them with and then they end up losing 2 or 3 mil and now you can't make that money back anymore. And so it's just a downhill spiral.
Yeah, it's something where we've helped athletes for. I remember the saddest, the buddy that I met who he'd be a guy I can't share who he is, but I remember meeting him, and the guy was the best guy in the world. Everything in high school, college, high level draft pick, and he said, he kind of schooled me. Now he's a security guard, and he's broke. He doesn't have any, and wait, not broke. I mean, he's putting his life back together. and he's been able to save, and I'm very proud of like where we've been able to help him. But I remember meeting him before, I didn't meet him when he had money, but he educated me on the depression. I mean, talk about like even what you were talking about race. I mean, think about like if you're in a certain area of the country and you're a 5 black lineman or something, like that's how you're defined. And I think a lot of how it seemed like your parents taught you to define yourself by your faith, by your values, by your work ethic, not by that you were a football player. Business owners do the same thing because they have you have a life. Like if you're making a lot of money in business, you have a shelf life, right? In a way, Bible says, Lord, teach us to number our days. But it's also teach us to number our days of acquiring wealth. Like there's a time to make money and there's a time to live off it. And athletes, people always say, oh, well, what if I made that, I'd save it. But they don't. We're all human and we all have human weakness.
It's funny because I tell people that because you get people in certain situations, they'll say stuff like, if I had $1 million, if I had $5 million, I would be this or I would be that. And I'm just like, guys, you wouldn't. Because you guys take this $1 million and you put yourself in your same exact situation. If you had $1 million, you probably wouldn't drive that car. So now your car note isn't going to be $200 a month. If you had $1 million, you probably wouldn't live in this same place. So now your rent or your mortgage is not the same. When you have $1 million, when you go to sleep at night and you wake up and your back is sore, you go buy a new bed. You don't just try to say, no, you say, man, my back is sore. I need a new mattress. And you go and buy it. I say, when you have $1 million, that type of money, when you're trying to watch TV and you got to squint because you feel like your TV is too small, you go buy you a bigger TV. Those are things that you don't feel like you're going to do when you have $1 million because you don't do that now because you can't do those things now. When you have $1 million and you have a blowout of a tire, when you go in, you probably tell them, hey, man, I probably need 4 new tires. Don't just fix this one because if this one just went out, the other ones are probably bad too. So change all 4 of them. It's not the same. And so you think you'll take that money and it'll last you forever. But you're going to go through that money because your lifestyle will be different unless you manage it.
And then you got 400,000 in taxes.
Right. They don't see that.
Did you have temptations to spend the money? Some of the athletes we've had with, then they get 10 girlfriends. And I was always a one woman man. So I was blessed meeting my wife younger. And, even though you're divorced, I think marriage protects you. There's that book, Millionaire Next Door. And a key attribute of millionaires is they're married more than the general population because singleness comes with different temptations to blow the money to impress the people.
I was married for my whole time I was in the NFL. So I definitely feel like that helped because you're right. There's a lot of situations that I didn't get in because I was married. There was a lot of things, when I first got in the league, people tried to put me in the party hosting and like the things. It's just different things like that. And, if you're single and you're just not getting in the NFL and you're in the city like Houston, you might be like, oh, yeah, I do that. It might be kind of fun. People get to know you. You hosting a party. I just made, right? But if I'm married, I'm like, nah, I ain't trying to go that route, bro. You know what I'm saying? So now you get out of that scene. Like that's not the scene that I'm trying to be on as a married guy. So, being married definitely helps you make better decisions, hopefully. But then now it's certain things that you might want to do, but when you're married, you probably should, talk about it with your spouse before you just do something. And if she's not on board, no, it's probably not going to happen as well. So definitely being married, I think, protects you for sure.
One of the things we do with clients, we help, we have something called the protection, savings, and growth model. So if you think of, I'm the financial quarterback, so we have the offensive line, the defensive line. And one of the opposing forces of wealth is taxation. Did you plan actively for taxes, like every paycheck, or was that a big surprise?
It wasn't a big surprise, but the plan that my team had is the plan that I did. There were times where they were like, they told me, they was like, people love getting tax refunds. They were like, we don't really want to get a tax refund. We kind of want to pay money back. It was like, when you get a tax refund, that means the government had your money all year and now they just giving you some of it back. It was like, when you have to pay money back, that means you had your own money all year and, it was sitting in your account and now it's time for you to just pay some of it back. So whatever plan that they had, far as how they wanted to handle it, far as, if we was going to pay more in or if we wanted to, do it check by check, however they wanted to do it, I was like, all right, man, that's what you guys feel like we need to do. Let's do it. Everything to me was, if that's what they felt like doing, let's just execute it at a high level. You guys execute at a high level. I'm going to execute at a high level on my end, and let's go and win.
Did you get into trusts and estate planning?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've done all that, trust, estate planning, all that stuff.
Are you amazed at how many athletes don't do that?
Yeah. Yeah. But like I say, it's a lot of times, if you don't have a relationship with your financial guy, which a lot of these guys probably don't, they get into the NFL, they get into this money and they just go and they hire some financial advisor that they don't even really know. And so that guy's probably not worried about your estate planning. He's just, taking care of what he needs to take care of. And so having somebody, like I said, that I consider my brother, he's like, bro, we need to do this. We need to get wheels in place. We need to do this. Hey, bro, we need to switch this over to a trust. We need to do this. And like I said, I understood all that stuff. But if I didn't have them, I wasn't thinking about like, hey, man, this is the best route that we should be going, because it's very difficult to be 100% locked into that and 100% locked into football. It just was difficult. So I was just fortunate to have a team that guided me and helped me get all that stuff set up. But I definitely know that there's a lot of people that don't have those people around them and they don't have that stuff set up.
What are some common mistakes you've seen young athletes make when they get that first big check?
I can't even say it's spending. I would say it's really discipline, because I do feel like you've made it to this point and you do have a lot of money. You should be able to buy yourself something nice. But it's a difference in buying one Rolex and buying 10 Rolexes. That's a difference. It's a difference in buying one nice vehicle or having two nice vehicles where you work. You got two nice vehicles in Miami where you spend the off season. You got one in LA. Like, that's a difference. And so I don't think you can't have nice things. I really think it's just the discipline of, hey, I'm good.
To me, you're known for the Yukon Denali over the Bentley. The Yukon Denali is a nice car. See, I don't view that as, in my notes, you famously kept the same Yukon Denali while teammates were buying Bentleys. To me, Yukon Denali is a nice car.
But that's what I'm saying. A Yukon Denali is a really nice car that's going to cost you at that time 70. I think I got mine for 72 when I got it. But
from where I was from, that meant you arrived.
Right.
Right?
That's a nice vehicle.
Yeah.
But it's not a $200,000 Bentley.
Yeah. My first car was a beat up Hyundai Excel with the muffler tied to the base of the car that I got for free from my brother because it was 300,000 miles. To me, going from that car to a new Civic when I was 22, 20, that was great. I think I think that's your idea. You got to enjoy the small victories. So you almost progress. You don't go straight to the moon.
You hit it right on the head, because when I got to the NFL, I literally used to feel like, guys, when I was in college, I would go to Foot Locker or Champs and I would buy 5 t-shirts for $20. That was the sale, 5 for 20 on t-shirts. So to go from buying 5 t-shirts for $20, if I go out and buy me a nice Ralph Lauren polo or a nice like I feel like that's an upgrade. I don't have to go buy a $400 Louis Vuitton t-shirt. I can get me a nice t-shirt for $75 for $65. And that's going to be better than the 5 for 20. So I'm upgrading, but I don't have to go straight to the top just because now I'm in the NFL. Like I never felt that way. So I was always about that progression. That's why I say when I turn 40, you know what I'm saying? Because everything, all my vehicles, I've been Denali and, little Infinity car.
You're getting the Bentley now at 40.
By the time I get to the Bentley, I might be like closer to 50.
I don't know if I'll ever do it. I'd rather buy a house or an investment.
Something.
There's all these financial burdens that athletes have after they retire. Medical bills, trainers, trusts, divorce is very big, among athletes, because you have these 2 phases of life. It's almost like you're 65 in a 40-year-old body. Talk about that a little bit.
That's all true. The medical bills, the divorce, that's all true. I mean, I was fortunate enough to get out of the NFL without a lot of injuries. So my body feels great right now. So I haven't had to, have a lot of the medical bills. And so I'm able to use my health reimbursement account that I had accumulated while I was playing to, pay my insurance premiums now. So I've been fortunate, but there's guys that have had, knee surgeries in retirement and knee replacements and different things. And I've been blessed to not have to do that. I've went through a divorce, so that's real. That happens, and that happens for a lot of players. And that right there immediately affects your net worth. It just is what it is. Yeah, it just affects it. So those things happen, and that's what you call life. Life happens, and you're no longer getting $15 million a year, $10 million a year. You're no longer getting those things. And so it's tough on guys. I feel like they get the real world, but they're on a higher level. So everything costs more. Everything costs more.
It's like living in a nice neighborhood. They always quote you a higher price for getting stuff done. I remember, my dishwasher broke and they wanted $1,000 to install a dishwasher. I'm like, I'm never paying. I didn't pay it out of principle. I'm like, I got to call 3 places.
The thing that I realized that I try to be is over my time, I felt like cheap costs more. My financial manager, he's from Uganda, Africa, right? And, he said his dad used to always tell him when they were younger that they were too poor to buy cheap. And he never understood what he meant. And as he got older, he started to understand that we're too poor to buy cheap, meaning I want to buy something one time. So I need it to be something nice that's going to last. Because if I buy it cheap, I'm going to have to continue to buy it. And we're too poor for me to have to continue to buy things over and over and over. And so when it comes to stuff like that, it's like,
hey, were you saying I'm cheap?
No, I'm not saying you're cheap. But I'm sitting here like, okay,
dishwasher.
If the dishwasher costs $350, this guy's saying, and these people are saying $1,000, let me find somebody in the 700 range because I feel like that's going to be kind of my speed. They're not cheap, but they ain't,
But it's funny, you're right though. It did end up costing. They broke something.
You end up spending more.
Right.
They break something. They don't do it all the way. Now you got to call somebody else to come out. Now they got to fix what they messed up and then do it the right way. So now you paid them.
And I'm spending a couple hours of my time, which is valuable. You're right. Yeah. So as we conclude, what are the resources for players? And then how do people like me who have good financial firms get through to the people, because I find that I know NFLPA, they have NFL, PA endorsed financial people, but that doesn't seem to have solved the problem, right? It's just like a designation.
I think the hard thing about bigger firms, and I don't know how big the firm is the personal connection. Sometimes when you're a part of a bigger firm, when guys are even when guys are picking agents, when you go with a smaller agency, there's just more personal connection. You can call and talk directly to the person that you need to talk to. When you go with the larger firms, it's like, hey, this right here is your agent, but when I call, I'm talking to this guy because he's like the guy under him, or he's like,
go where you're the big fish, not where you're. And that's a great tip. Like with you're like filled with a lot of gold. We should write a book together. People always say, how big we are. We're a boutique fiduciary. We're a boutique registered investment advisor. We're SEC registered. We're big enough. We have accounts held at Fidelity and Schwab. So you get the big name. But we're boutique. And I think, I think athletes should go with boutique firms where they're respected and not, one of, 100 of the same.
And that's what I would say, get personal, get to know them, talk to them. Like, you can call me. You're not calling my assistant. No, I'm your guy. Call me. And then you start to build that trust. And then word of mouth spreads throughout the NFL. And that's how you build the trust in the NFL, because now other guys that are trusted in those locker rooms, because when you got a guy that's, that trusts you, when he's in the locker room and he finds that young player that's kind of like trying to, he's taken under his wings and, he's been the older vet, he's going to tell him, hey, man, you need to get with my people, bro. They're good people. They're going to take care of you. They're going to help you. And so then now, if they trust you, then they're going to trust your people. Well, then your people take care of them the same way they take care of you. Now you've built two people and you just build it. And the word of mouth, people start to see and they hear like, man, like you doing good, bro. Like, who your people? Oh, these my people, bro. They do this, they do that. Like, bro, I need to hit them up because, my people ain't doing all that stuff for me. And next thing you know, you just slowly building a team by word of mouth. And you're not even building it off of, huge ads and advertisement. I think that's the stuff that get washed away because it seems like overkill, like this big company. There's, what I'm saying, as opposed to word of mouth spreading through the locker room, spreading through the leagues that like these are really good people. And the people that are saying it are people that are trustworthy type of people that, a lot of guys can connect with.
I had a lot of fun. Glover Quinn, GQ?
GQframes.com. And if you want to go on Instagram, I got my personal Instagram account is Glover Quinn 27. But if you really want to, get personal with me, you got to go to GQframes.com. And that's my website. And my Instagram is GQ_frames. It's a lot smaller page. And I spend more time on that page.
Well, great. This was a lot of fun.
All right, man. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye.